Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
And Stacie Walker is a known international best-selling author, award-winning podcast personality, and business strategist. She's been featured on the Huffington Post, Killer Startups, Small Business Trends, About.com, Women on Business, and many other media outlets. Stacie is the founder of The Virtual Solopreneur, a blog that teaches new and seasoned entrepreneurs how to implement simple collaborative strategies and social media marketing to build a successful online business. Just so we give you this information up front, Stacie Walker's website is Stacie, Stacie, Walker, WALKER.com, and her Twitter name is at Stacie Walker, at STACIE Walker.com. And let's hear today what Stacie is going to help us with about how to help large corporate employees and workers find strength and overcome mindset blocks. Welcome, Stacie Walker.
Hi, Joanne. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I'm so happy that we are still in contact with each other all of these years. So we've been able to see each other evolve and change and start new projects. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you were able to find the time in your busy life to make time for us to talk on the record, so to speak. Not that I'm a reporter, but, to give our audience the benefit of your experience in the workplace, helping others in the workplace. I know that you help evolving women, mothers, start their own businesses, but I know throughout the years of your experience in the workforce that you've also got a handle on how people can overcome the mindset blocks that interfere with them providing value to their fellow employees and their customers as well. Because even though they're employees or workers, or I call them IT pros, internet technology professionals, they still have customers. Their customers are, or vendors, as you will, they still have a lot of those that they have to deal with. So they have to deal with the person next to them, the person on their team, the manager or supervisor, the project manager, and then the higher-ups, and then the people below them. So how can they access whatever skills that they have in order to make these relationships work at work?
Good question. That's a good question. Well, you've already mentioned that I have worked in the corporate world. I haven't been in the corporate world for a long time, but I do work with women who are coming out of it. And one thing that I notice is that the workplace really does not focus on people's strengths. It seems like there is a misfire when it comes to leadership because, like I mentioned earlier, Joanne, people think leaders are born, and that narrative is false. Leaders aren't born. They're made. They're made because it's a skill set like any other. You work out. You're terrible at it at first when you first start doing it, but over time you keep on honing your skills. You become a better leader, and you also start to realize what your strengths are. So, one of the things is when it comes to leadership is that we're all leaders. We're leaders in our home, in our communities. There's always someone looking to us, I should say, to show the way. And that should be no different in the workplace, especially when you're dealing with your team, your superiors, your consumers. So we have to step into a role of leadership in order to better understand our team members, our superior, the higher ups, our consumers, because one thing that's crucial for communication to go, 100% be comprehensive is we need to step up as leaders, get over those mindset blocks. I know it's easier said than done because there needs to be communication of how to do that. It's something that has to be learned. And one of the things that stops people from honing in onto their strengths is because they're scared. They have fears. They may not admit it, but I mean, we're all human. And one huge mental block, and I know you're aware of this, Joanne, is because we have this false narrative going on in our head, when it comes to certain things, or I can't be that successful because, et cetera, whatever's going to come out after that. So, I think it's just important to get over those blocks because anyone can step up. Anyone can use their strengths to further, gosh, I can't even communicate this effectively.
Well, what I'm reminded of when you're mentioning all of these things, I'm listening to them, and I've got two things here going.
Yes.
One is that people who are, you and I are speaking to people who can be leaders in their life. Mm-hmm. And yet some of these people think that if they are a leader in work, let's say, at home it might be simpler for them because it's 5 people, that kind of thing, and you take charge and you do that. But when you're at work, there are so many things, and sometimes people who are inexperienced at taking leadership roles think they have to act upon something, that they have to take a step forward when they may not realize that at the very beginning, all they have to do is be their own leader inside their own mind and their own heart, be the leader of their own life. So they don't have to tell somebody what to do. That's not what leadership is really about.
No.
Leadership is not about dictating to others and, you do this, you do that. That's generally a manager's job anyway, but usually you know what you need to do. And then another aspect that's sliding in because my brain is sourcing it and it just went away, but it'll come back. When I used to do women's workshops years ago, and it was about women's empowerment, and it's empowerment, leadership, fill in the blank to what word people are comfortable with. But I remember one of the little, ice-breaking games that I had was prior to the seminar workshop would create labels with powerful women's names coming from all walks of life. It didn't matter who they were. What mattered is that the woman would go in front of the room and put her hand in the bag or whatever it was and pull out a name, and she wouldn't see it. She would just have to put it on her. And then people would give off qualities that the name tag stated. So on her chest, she would have her own name tag plus this little name tag of the powerful woman that she pulled out of a bag. Can you see that right now?
Yes.
Okay. So then people would say, oh, she's, glamorous, she's rich, she's smart, she's whatever. And people would try to guess who it was. So what worked out to be, because God in his ways does these things, the qualities that these women had, the qualities that the fake women, the fake name tag had, were qualities that the women, the real women, wanted to have in their lives. So my suggestion had always been, act as if you are this.
Right.
And then that sort of accesses in your neurons places you've never been before in your mind. So act as if you are powerful and strong and talented and skilled and whatever. And, it's the old act as if issue. And, it's amazing how it works.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great icebreaker.
Yeah. And I never know where these things come from, but I think that that's what workers need to look for as well. Because my thought was, well, they should make a list of their strengths. Well, most people don't know what they're really strong at.
Right.
They only know their weaknesses because we're all conditioned to program our negatives first.
Right. It's a terrible thing because your mind can definitely trip you up. It can trip you up, and you can't reach full potential because you believe that those negative thoughts. And I wrote an article in the Huffington Post about it the other day about how we have to learn how to get rid of those negative thoughts, because it'd kill your potential, it'd kill your motivation, and it'd kill you. And of course, it'd just kill that drive for you to want to do the things that you really want to do in life. So it's a thing that we have to train our brains to do, because it's something that's really been I don't know if it's embedded in our DNA or what, but it's just something that has to be gotten rid of. So it's not a distraction. And of course, it's easier said than done. Like I said, it's a process. You have to commit to the process, because you may not see results immediately when it does come to those mindset blocks. And I love it that you shared about, being able to actually get people to visualize, what they want to be, because those are their strengths. They can have those. They're not out of reach. And I love that, because what you did is an example of a good leader. You are someone who influences others to do their best.
Well, it's interesting when we talk, we agreed that leaders are not born, they're made. Some may be born into it, but I don't think DNA is as strong as we think it is. As time goes by, I look at it and, read studies, articles, books. What we learn from the first moment we're born is how we respond in the world. Right. And that's what makes us who we are, more than what came in our DNA, because, I don't know what that really means anymore, because I was never a leader as a child. I am, by definition, more of an introvert than an extrovert, quite a bit more. And when I was a child, I was very quiet. I know it's hard to believe. And my parents, if they were still alive, would probably deny that. But I was very shy. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I was pretty much forced into the situation by becoming an entrepreneur or self-employed that I had no choice but to be the leader, in my mind, in retrospect, of my life, by just taking charge of my life. And I think that that's what one good description of leadership is: somebody who's willing to take charge first of their own life. Right.
Because if you can't take charge of your life, it's going to be hard for you to influence others to do their best. And also, Joanne, leaders aren't afraid to listen to others. Leaders have empathy, which is a quality that a lot of people don't have. I don't know if it really can be learned. It's something that I was born with, and I know it from a young age. But it's being able to have empathy and to be humble enough to admit that they don't know it all, and that's kind of hard for us to do as human beings at times. But that's what a prominent leader does. That's what anyone can do if they really want to step into a leadership position. And I'm not saying, to climb up the corporate ladder. I'm just talking about where you are right now, where you are in your life and in the workplace. You can definitely show people the way. Everyone needs help. And if you see something that can be done a different way, or you have an idea, don't be afraid to speak up. I have all sorts of ideas that I've verbalized, and not all of them are great, but at least I put it out there. At least I'm trying to find a solution, because I like to solve problems. And that's usually what's going on in the IT world. There's problem solving going on all the time in there, in the workplace. So that, I don't know if you have any thoughts about what I just said, but
now yes, the IT world specifically, not that it doesn't exist in other businesses, but they're constantly putting out fires. It's just part of the game of IT. the fire's being put out constantly, and it goes on for how many hours people are at work, and then sometimes at home when people decide not to put down their computer or their phone or their iPad to spend time with their families, which is something I really support people doing. That's one of my focuses. One of my goals that I'm looking to help people, include themselves in their own lives and incorporate their work life within their home life, as opposed to the reverse, which is what a lot of people do. Mm. I know that I had that same issue myself. I raised 3 children under the age of 9 by phone. So if you've ever seen that movie 9 to 5, that was me.
I love that movie.
It still stands up. It still stands up. And I think if people are put into not a stressful situation, but come to Jesus situation where they have to make a decision, they will then become the leader in their own lives, if not the lives of somebody else. Mm-hmm. But it takes some sort of a big step, or it's like the visual I see is climbing up a ladder and one of the rungs is missing and you have a choice. You can either skip that missing rung and go to the next one and climb higher, or go back down. Right. And I want people to continue to go back higher, even if they don't know what's up there. And I think you kind of like that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing about being able to hone in on your strengths, I mean, it's not something that you can just think of at the top of your head. It's an assessment. You have to really sit down, be real with yourself, go to a quiet place, and answer some hard questions. Like the prominent leader within that I'm going to provide for the listeners, it actually has assessments, like questions, and they're not easy questions. And you got to go through them. You got to think about it, especially if you're wanting to hone in on those strengths, and you will through these assessments. And I ask, in the assessment, the questions are like, do you think of yourself as someone who easily takes charge of a situation? Do you think you're a good leader right now? Do you think you would be? Why would you? Why not? There's also assessments on fear of failure and fear of success, which can also be a mind block, which is crazy to think that, why would I be scared to be successful? Well, a lot of people think they aren't, but they are, because when you become successful, you're more visible. You're more that exposes you more as a person. So I think people are afraid to hone in on their strengths because it makes them more visible. They'll stand out, and some people don't want that. They don't want attention. They don't want to let other people down. So they kind of like, well, I would love to create whatever, but if I do this, then, people are going to judge me, or it might work out, but people are going to hate me. I mean, like I said, there is a narrative that goes on in our mind that keeps us from actually taking action and honing on our strengths and using them in the workplace, in life. I don't separate my business from my life because they're intertwined, because no matter where I go and what I do, I'm the same person. Mm-hmm. So, they're pretty interchangeable. So, and no matter what level of success you may see someone at, anywhere, it could be in your workplace life, you've got to understand that they also have problems and struggles and mind blocks. It's just that they have learned how to, they've learned how to take care of it. They've learned how to turn that off so they can focus on whatever they need to do, because they're focusing on their truth. So fear of success is a big one.
Yeah, people, fear of success. And then there's another one I want to add, why people are afraid. They don't want to excel more than their parents did. Mm-hmm. And that's something that people, I don't know why. God only knows how we have been. How you and I are as sane as we are amazes the heck out of me, because it's what we are put through as human beings, I don't know if our listeners, depends. Some are older and might be more experienced in the world, and I'm not exactly sure, but, we put ourselves through hell. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of help with that. And society, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
We have a lot of help with doing that, and it would be nice, but if it were another way, but it isn't. It is what it is, and we have to learn how to function within the context of we are responsible for our lives. We are responsible and accountable, and if we are going to be picked out and made, someone will say, "Oh, look, that's Stacie," and you go, "Oh, don't look at me." Well, too late.
Right. I see
Too
you.
late.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember being in front of the room myself with some things, and that I would get challenges in the front of the room, but I realized later that the challenges came out of my own fears. And it was my own fear that was expressed via the audience that I had to deal with in public. So it was fine because I understood what was happening, but it was really weird how things work. So if we are a product of the narratives that we have in our mind based on what we hear from the outside and choose to believe, we change the narrative.
Right.
And that is part of what I think you are doing.
Yes, you have to change the narrative because one thing that we do as human beings is that we can lose ourselves because we only think of ourselves as mother, wife, sister, daughter, and or whatever role you have in your professional life. And that can make you have a different narrative that's going on to where, are you doing these things for other people or are you doing it for yourself? That's something that does not serve you. You have to discover who your true self is. If you strip off your roles, like I said, mother, daughter, wife, strip all of that off. And you are on an island. There's no one around. You don't have to work. Who are you? You're by yourself. So you don't have anyone influencing you to do anything. You're not responsible. You have to sit there and think, like, who am I? I'm not just a mother. I'm a woman who, of course, that's my gender role right there. And see, I still do it. I am an individual who loves to write. I love to go and walk so I can think about the things in my life that I have done either to hurt people or to love people. So I really like to go deep inside myself and think about the person I am. I love to write. I love to help people. I would give the shirt off my back if someone was cold. I would be cold too. I'll put other people first, and it has hurt me in a lot of ways over the years, but I've learned to set boundaries with people. But it's those things right there. I notice my strengths. And when I was younger, when I was a child, I used to write all the time. Well, I lost my way when I was a teenager wanting to fit in with the crowd. I stopped writing and got into a bad crowd, bad scene. And that's when I lost myself. I can reflect and look back at this of when I lost myself. I wasn't true to myself. And when I wasn't true to myself and I was wanting to either please others, it made me unhappy. And I wasn't focusing on my strengths. My weaknesses were amplifying more and more, and my strengths they seemed non-existent. And it wasn't until I started surrounding myself around people who were leaders, who have their stuff together, who have the tools, the skill set that I can learn from to hone in on my strengths and get over these mind blocks. Because one thing that is guaranteed is that if you want to hone in on your strengths, you're going to need some guidance. You can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone.
No, not at all. And I've tried to do it. I've tried to do it alone. Believe me, for many years I tried to do it alone because I was like, well, I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody because I was at a point in my life where I did not want to deal with anybody because I was so hurt. But that wasn't fair to the people who wanted to be in my life and to help me. I was shutting people off. I'm an introvert too. I am definitely an introvert, and I didn't see myself as that way years ago, but now I know I am. I'm at peace by myself. I don't need to go out all the time. I have my family. I have a 14-month-old running around. If I could never go to a social event again, I wouldn't be crushed about it, but I know my strength is that I can help other people with technology. And it may seem that I'm not an introvert because I'm using this tool to communicate my message. So I totally got off track, but what I'm trying to say is that it is so important to have a support system in place, especially if you want to hone in on your strengths, because you need people you need people from the outside looking in. I was going to say that the other way. But yes, you need people from the outside of you looking in. That way they see you. And it's okay if they see you as you are, because we are not perfect. And we all have our flaws. And I've noticed since I have intentionally created a support system that my skills, my strengths are amplifying more and more and more. And I become more centered. I live my truth. Those negative thoughts and narratives start going away. And
I think sometimes when people do look at you or me or anyone else, that they see our strengths that we've yet uncovered. So
absolutely,
I want to make sure that people know your website address before we close this particular session. It's staciewalker.com, StacieWalker. Twitter name Stacie Walker, Stacie Walker. And I will make sure it's in the show notes, but there will be a PDF guide entitled The Prominent Leader Within. And be sure to check out, what's the title of the post you did on Huffington Post, the article you wrote?
It was how to develop unshakable confidence as an entrepreneur. Now, it's targeted towards entrepreneurs, but it's some information that anyone can use.
Yeah, I think we just transfer the content to different things. It's the same, people. It's the same.
Absolutely.
And both Stacie and I I will label it a ministry of helping others, period. There's nothing more that we want to do is to help others. I know that if I don't help somebody every day, I'm bereft that I've not fulfilled my job in this world. God put me here for that reason, is to help others. And it took me a long time before I realized that in its fullness, and I'm still learning about it. Well, Stacie, we're getting to the end of this, and I really appreciate you being here, and I want people to, check you out on your website, read everything that you have written, wherever it might be, and if God helps us, if anyone can find a copy of the interview that Stacie did with me a while back, and it might be on the internet somewhere, when she was, her business was Women in Leadership Success, go for that. And I'm glad you were here today, Stacie. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. It was fun. I appreciate you for letting me come on and share my message with the world.
I think your message is out there. Thank you, Stacie Walker.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on her podcast page. And get a free copy of her book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.